Hey guys, G here. Today's video is about, do the effects of psychedelics last, or how long do the effects of psychedelics last? And this was a question someone emailed to me. They'd watched one of my videos about ayahuasca and plant medicine. They asked, like, how long do they last, and are the experiences only always joyful? So two amazing questions I want to address here. And I guess just a disclaimer, psychedelics are something not to take lightly. These are illegal in most places. Some places they are legal, in some places they are decriminalized, which just means that people won't be prosecuted for possessing small amounts of them. So I think even in Vancouver, they recently just said it's going to be like the lowest priority, so they're not actively seeking people for things like psilocybin. But be careful. I wouldn't suggest doing them if they're illegal. And I can only share my own experiences with these plant medicines. So I guess the first part of the question is, how long do the effects last? So now each different plant medicine or psychedelic is going to be different in the length of the trip based on what you're taking, the quality, how much you're taking, and also your state as well. Did you fast before taking it? Did you take it on a full stomach? So when fasted, I find it comes on a little bit quicker. Obviously, you metabolize it a bit faster. I also think that it will, not necessarily metabolize a bit quicker as well. It comes on quicker, but it might last a little bit shorter. Whereas if you have food in your system, it'll take a little bit slower, obviously, to metabolize, and it might take a little bit longer for the effects to sort of finish. But that's not always the case. So I think the question though was about, like, how long do the effects last? What happens after? So typically during the experience, again, depending on the dose, you may experience visions, bodily sensations, emotions, purging, which can be things like crying, yawning, tears. Like guys, you say my eyes are leaking. Sometimes you'll feel like you're shaking, almost like you're laughing or crying. I think this is all the body trying to release stored emotions that are held on in our cellular memory and deep inside our physical body. And then these laughing, shaking, crying is the body releasing it. I've personally myself shook for an entire mushroom ceremony for like 3 hours, just body twitches. And some people will say, oh, that's probably just a neurotoxic effect of the medicine. And, like, there's ways that science can explain things that are happening, just like I'm sure if, something in the Bible was true, like turning a staff into a snake, science could find a way to say, oh, this is how it happened, to analyze it and say, this is actually what happened. But why is that happening? And maybe that's a bad example because it seems very unlikely. But at one time, maybe a caterpillar turning into a butterfly might have seemed like miraculous, and then science say, well, this is specifically what happens. There's imaginal cells that start eating the other cells, and they start grouping up, and they transform into this beautiful butterfly. Okay. Miracle, not a miracle, but something scientific will explain eventually what's happening. So I think there is an emotional aspect to it, and different things can happen. So that's just basically want to talk about that. Now, what happens after? Well, this is where the question marks come up. Some people do a large dose of psilocybin or ayahuasca, and some people will feel much better the next day. Some people have claimed that their depression has gone away. Some people have claimed that their anxiety has gone away. But at the same time, the opposite can happen, meaning, if you're, this is my interpretation, if you're suppressing emotions and trauma and feeling for a long time, plant medicine can bring these back up to the surface. And in order to release them, sometimes you need to feel them on their way out. Jerry from Rhythmia always says, what's coming is going. So in the ayahuasca experience, if you see all this stuff coming up, your mind might think, oh, it's getting worse. I don't want to see this, because you're so used to suppressing all these emotions or these perceived negative thoughts and feelings and events that happen to you. But really, I think what the plant medicine is trying to purify that out of you, is trying to clean you from this memory that you're holding on to. And not necessarily cleaning the memory, but the emotions tied with it. So it's bringing it out and you're feeling it as it's leaving. So that can be intense for some people. And sometimes without proper support and guidance, this opening of this emotional experiences can be difficult to process. Where some people may feel like they're regressing, or they feel all these emotions that they've suppressed. So some people may say, oh, it's good because I'm feeling again. Some people who have numbed themselves. Other people, they don't want to feel that, so it's uncomfortable. And so this is the commitment you're making when you're doing this kind of work. You know, you're not sure what can come up, so you have to be ready for it, prepared to sort of be able to feel into it. And I think it's important to not try to suppress these feelings, but to really sit with them, to really see what's really at the core um, of whatever it is that comes up. You know, I think there are things to learn from all the traumatic experiences in our lives. No matter how difficult they are, something was there for you to learn and to grow from, that made you stronger. And there are ways to change the story around the event. You know, you'll never be able to erase the event from your life of whatever it is that happened that caused you a lot of pain and suffering. But you can change your perspective of it, and to see, you know, how that shifted your life, maybe in a good or bad way, but in a way that taught you many things, that way that made you stronger, that made you some things happen in your life that are happening now. And you can remove the emotion from it so that it just becomes an event, where it's not that every time you think of it, you feel it in your body, you want to suppress that feeling, try to forget it. Because whatever that event was, it's most likely showing up in many different areas in your life that are going to be setting you back. Because every time that negative emotion comes up, it's going to create a physical response in your body, an emotional response in your body. You're going to probably release different neurochemicals, stress hormones, stuff like that. So, you know, that's what this kind of work can potentially do. And sometimes it's just pure bliss and joy. And maybe that's exactly what you need. And that's why I think it's important having an intention going into any type of psychedelic ceremony. And really allowing things to unfold and not trying to analyze. So you set an intention, it comes in. Sometimes things will come up that are not exactly clear. And I think some people, they think that, oh, I'm going to take a psychedelic and it's going to answer all my questions. You might get some answers, but most likely you're going to get a lot more questions, and it's just going to really expand your consciousness. And sometimes the questions you thought you wanted to know, you realize in the experience are just not important. You know, it's really, you know, sometimes it's like, who cares? Who gives a whatever about what I was asking? And this whole new perspective comes in and sort of shifts you. So, and this can last, like, you know, like the actual experience might last a few hours. You know, like typically for me, ayahuasca, the intense part of it will last 3 hours. And then you'll feel the effects of the medicine for maybe another 3 or 4 hours afterwards. You know, but the next day you're going to feel different. That whole month, things are going to start shifting in your life. You know, when you change your perspective on life, your mind really creates your reality. So when you have a shift in perspective, you know, over the next month, year, whatever, things are going to change. You're going to see things differently. You're going to see nature differently. You're going to see things in your life differently. If something comes up in a psychedelic experience, like a traumatic event, and you change your perspective towards it, think about how that's going to cascade and shift into all aspects of your life if you have that awareness. So it's really important, you know, to reflect, you know, that same day, the day after, take some time to meditate on the experience, not trying to analyze, but allowing it to unfold. You know, why did that come up? What was it trying to show me? You know, what can I learn from this experience? And how is everything in my life a mirror to reflect back at me, for things to notice? You know, like, who makes me upset? Who makes me happy? So there's really a lot in that question. Well, how long does it last? But I think, like I explained in the other video about, you know, bad trips explained, which I'll leave a link to here. Just make a note so I remember. You know, all trips are good trips. All trips have things to learn from. If you have the right setting and setting, it will help when you go into those maybe fearful experiences, just to feel safe and comfortable and have a good sitter. But I think they're always trying to teach you and to show you certain things. So, like I said earlier, I've known some people that have taken just one high dose of mushrooms or ayahuasca and their life has been changed forever. I know some people have done that have said that it made them feel more anxious, you know, which I think is really bringing things to the surface. And for me, in an ayahuasca ceremony, if I feel like I'm stuck or it's really intense and I want to give up and I want to quit, for me, that's a sign that maybe I need to take some more. Which sounds so counterintuitive, which at the time it's like, are you crazy? Don't do that. But usually when I do it, it'll help push me through, it'll help show me, like, you know, a deeper truth to what I thought I was stuck on. And then, there's some sort of concern areas where people that may have a history for, schizophrenia or other serious mental health issues, they say that it can be triggered through a high psychedelic. And so this is something to consider, if you have a history of it in your family. I know John Hopkins, they really screen for things like this, and really, a lot of the responsible centers will screen for things like mental health. Some native traditions will say that people that have mental health issues, are special, and there's things about them that they're communicating with other aspects that you cannot see. So it's a really interesting thing to consider, but I would sort of suggest to steer clear of psychedelic use if you're at risk, and maybe focus on things like meditation and breath work as a tool to go deeper into yourself and maybe unlock some of these things. So they can, the actual experience will be a day. The afterglow can be, the next couple little while where you're just feeling uplifted, but the effects will continue to unfold for you over next months, years, your entire life. But I think ultimately the psychedelic or plant medicine is a tool for awareness. And then it's how you apply that. So it'll show you things, and now it's like, how do you integrate? How do you be more aware of what it's showing you in your everyday life? And I think that's the key, because the psychedelic is not the answer, the end all be all, the panacea. It's going to be a tool to show you more, to learn, and now it's how you apply that tool. Now when it's going to tell you, forgive your mother, or call this person, or, start eating healthy, or, you need to meditate more. You might have that aha moment, but are you actually going to do it? I think that's the key. So creating a daily ritual, daily routine is super important, with or without the psychedelic. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. For those who asked, I hope it brought some clarity onto, how long do these trips last, and, the actual experience is more than just the actual trip. It actually will create a shock or a ripple wave in your life if taken correctly. And some people taken the wrong setting with no awareness, you might have an interesting experience. Things like magic mushrooms, I know are used sometimes a little more recreational than ritualistic or ceremonial. And to each their own. In my earlier years, that was the way I used them, but in recent years, I realized that there are really intentional ways to use these things, and that's the only way that I like to use them now. When I do, if I do, in a safe place where it's legal. So do your due diligence. And again, talk to your healthcare professional before ingesting anything, for that matter. And I hope you like this video. So thank you for all your support, for sharing, for liking, for commenting, and I hope to see you soon. Peace.